All right, today we're shifting and we're going to learn about HTML and CSS today. And you'll learn just enough to be able to do some basic things and get frustrated. But that's all part of learning HTML and CSS. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Um, and this is the code that all web pages are fundamentally written in. Okay. Um, so little bit of an introduction. It specifies the structure of the language. Specifies the structure of the language, of like what you want the web page to look like, and that code, that HTML code, is read by web browsers like Chrome. Okay, um, you can see the HTML for any web page you go to in Chrome by doing like the developer options and saying like show source. You can see the page source. The way that HTML is organized is there is an HTML document. That's the page you're looking at in your browser. And that document consists of a series of elements. Okay, so element is a common term that we're going to use with HTML. Here's an example of an HTML element. An element is defined by having an opening tag, a closing tag, and some content between those tags. Okay, so here's an example of a paragraph element. And so an opening tag starts with a less than symbol, has the name of the tag, and then ends with a greater than symbol. Then you have your actual content, and the closing tag is just like the opening tag, except after the less than symbol, there's a slash. Okay, that's how we know it's the closing tag. Um, and essentially, this is all HTML is: a whole bunch of different elements with opening and closing tags. They can be nested inside themselves. It can get somewhat complicated, but fundamentally, this is what an HTML document looks like. We can nest elements. Okay, so one element can contain another element. This happens all the time. When we nest elements, your opening and closing tags have to be balanced. There is actually a practice programming activity with stacks, and a test question related to stacks, I believe, about opening and closing tags, right? So a stack is a good way to check that the tags were balanced. This sounds vague and abstract, so here's a really simple example to kind of show you this. These tags are balanced. So you'll notice that the strong element with its open and closing tag is inside of the opening and closing tag for the paragraph, okay? These tags aren't balanced. Notice that the paragraph tag starts here, the strong tag starts here, but then we end the paragraph tag before the strong tag. This is not valid HTML, okay? It's not like it's going to crash your web browser, but it's not going to be displayed as you expect, perhaps. All right. So our tags, when we nest our elements, tags have to be balanced. So that's one thing we watch out for. The formatter in VS Code makes this easy because it will indent your HTML so that you can see the tags being balanced, which is great. Some elements are just a tag. They don't have any content, so therefore they don't have a separate closing tag. An image element is an example of that. And so the way we do that is we start the image tag just like normal, but then we put the slash right before the greater than symbol at the end. And this is how we specify valid HTML to say, this is a self-contained tag. This is the whole element right here. Okay, so you'll see that as well. HTML is pretty forgiving. If you left this off, everything's going to work just fine. But I'm trying to show you like valid HTML that would actually pass through a syntax checker. So some elements have additional attributes that are specified with key value pairs. Okay. And the format for that is the name of the attribute, in this example, class, an equal sign, and then in quotes, the value for the attribute. If there are multiple attributes, they are separated by spaces, not by commas, okay? So you'll notice the format for JSON and JavaScript and HTML in terms of their key value pairs, in terms of their attributes and properties, are all a little bit different, which confuses me. But just look at other examples like in the same file, and it's a good reminder about what's going on. So Here we're specifying that the class of this paragraph element is editor note. And we'll see the value of specifying a class for an element in just a moment. So, all right, so we can have attributes too. Cool stuff. All right, let's pause there. We'll come back to cascading style sheets in a moment. Let's look at index.html. So there's this index.html file already written for you. I did not write that. This is like this is the HTML for like the default page in Firefox, the Mozilla browser. But I liked it because it was very clean and straightforward, and so we can see examples of everything we talked about. One thing I guess we didn't talk about is the first tag here is a little bit different. It's got this bang doc type HTML, tells it like what type of HTML document it is. You could see other stuff there too, like XML or XHTML, but we'll just stick with HTML. Here is our opening tag for the HTML document, and it's closed all the way here at the end. And you'll notice how everything is indented. Here's the head. The head of your HTML document is like the title that would show up in the Chrome like title bar. Might have other stuff in the head as well. Here we say what type of a character set we're using. Next is the body, and that's the rest of this document. That's what shows up on your page. H1 is like heading level 1, biggest font, big heading. We've got an image here. We have a property for source. We have another property with the alt text. So this is important for accessibility. If I'm using a screen reader, I can't see the Firefox icon, but my screen reader will read the alt text to me instead. We've got a paragraph. UL is an unordered list, so it'll show up as bullet points. OL is an ordered list. You're not expected to memorize all this stuff, but you'll learn it pretty quickly. We've got another paragraph here. Another paragraph. A is an anchor. An anchor has a property which is the href, and it makes this a link. So the Mozilla Manifesto will have that underline that we're accustomed to, and it will link to this other page. Div is used for like elements within our document that don't have like a semantic meaning, like they're not like a paragraph or a list, but we still need them organized in some fashion. I don't know. The HTML has a long history. The HTML tags are supposed to specify what it is, not how you want it displayed. That's up for the browser. People, I think we've gotten away from that in the last, I don't know, couple decades probably. So you see a lot more div elements used now where all the formatting is done through CSS and JavaScript. I don't know. It's the way the world is now, I guess. We can have buttons. That's another element. We've assigned a class to this button. This is going to be important. Does your code have this? Yeah, you got the button? Okay. I wasn't sure if I put that in or not. We'll use this in a moment, or we'll use this later tomorrow, but I wanted to make sure it was here. In one of the extensions that recommended extensions that you installed when we first opened this VS Code project lets us view HTML pages simply within VS Code without needing to go to Chrome or anything. So if you right click on index.html, you can choose at the top, open with live server. And when you say open with live server, it automatically opens it in your default browser. So I'll bring that up here. Whoops. Here's what it looks like. Mozilla is cool. There's the image and everything. And here's that button we made at the bottom. Okay. So the live server makes it easy to like test out your HTML code and see if it looks like what it looks like. If you look in Chrome or whatever your default browser is, you'll see that it's not like a normal URL that we're accustomed to. It's just an IP address, and it's 127.0.0.1. 127.0.0.1 is a special IP address called localhost. It's a shortcut of saying connect to this computer. Okay, what the live server is doing is it's actually running a web server on your computer right now. And that web server is listening to port 5500. That's what's after the colon here, it specifies the port number. And then when we connect to 127.0.0.1 colon 5000 slash index.html, it returns this page for us. So by clicking on run with live server, you actually started a web server on your computer and are now using your browser to connect to it, which is kind of cool. We'll be doing over the rest of the semester and all next semester a lot of stuff where we're connecting to servers running locally on our computer. And usually we type localhost instead, but this is how it works. So you could also say localhost colon 5500 slash index HTML, and it shows you the same page. So we'll do more with that later for sure. Fantastic. Let's pause here.